So welcome back officially, everyone. Nice to have you here, Lane and Kim. Dawn, welcome back. Nice to have you for the third time actually. So let's have a look at today's daily quote. It's got quite a profound message to today's workbook lesson, which is lesson number 1. So I'll share my screen with you. And maybe Dawn, if you can read the quote for us, that would be great. So yeah, I'll share the screen. You see that? Sharon, can you see it or not?
No, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Let's try again.
It says start. You've started the screen sharing.
Yeah, did this earlier actually. I should have restarted my laptop. Never mind. We'll just stop it and then start it again. Okay, can you see it now or not?
No, not yet. Oh, there. Okay.
There you go. It's coming.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so Dawn, if you can read that quote. So this is the daily quote. You got it on Telegram.
Right. Is that? Okay, so.
It's that's good. Sorry, it's just disappeared quickly. So we just need to close a couple of apps here. There's probably a little bit too much going on. Apologies, I should have done this earlier. Zoom quit. Am I still in Zoom? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I hear you.
You can hear me, okay. It's just saying Zoom's quitting. Let's stop my share. Let's get back into there. Okay. Hopefully we'll close a couple of apps. Should be good. Let's close that. Okay. Okay, second go. Is that all right? Can you see that?
Yeah.
You can see the screen. Dawn, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can read that, quote, that'd be great. Is it big enough? I can make it a bit bigger if you want.
Yeah. The world we see merely reflects our own internal frame of reference. The dominant ideas, wishes, and emotions in our minds makes perception, text introduction.
Yeah. Projection makes perception. It's
Makes perception.
the ideas.
Yeah.
We'll discuss it once you read the quote.
Okay.
Carry on.
Continue.
Yeah.
Text introduction to chapter 21. We look inside first, decide the kind of world we want to see, and then project that world outside, making it the truth as we see it. We make it true by our interpretations of what it is we are seeing. If we are using perception to justify our own mistakes, our anger and impulses, to attack our lack of love in whatever form it may take, we will see a world of evil, destruction, malice, envy, and despair. All this we must learn to forgive, not because we are being good and charitable, but because what we are seeing is not true. And then it's A Course in Miracles, pre-saves what it's.
Yeah. So that's from the preface, which I did include at the beginning of the course, but what I've done there in the emails is a link to it. So if you want to go and read the preface, you can do that. I'd suggest you do, actually, if you haven't done that already, because it's quite profound. It gives good introduction of into the course and what it does, and what it's saying. So to summarize what you said, this section tells us exactly what the world is: a projection of our own dominant ideas, desires, and emotions, and why we should forgive. And remember, forgiveness is always letting go. So I use those terms synonymously. Forgive means to let go of it, of the world, and of these emotions. And we don't do it because we're so spiritual or enlightened, which can be just another false self-concept. It causes more false projection perceptions, called the holy ego. Oh, I'm the spiritual one now. And we've all known people like that. And actually, there's plenty of ego there, possibly even more so than people who are so-called not spiritual, because they're identified with the spiritual persona. So that's not enlightenment. But true enlightenment is really just saying that nothing you perceive outside of you is real. And so today's lesson speaks directly to that. Nothing that I see means anything. If it doesn't have any meaning, then it can't be real. But to judge it as real by reacting to it emotionally is to make the mistake of reinforcing the seeming reality of this world and the false separated self-concept that made it up. So what the Course in Miracles is saying is that we've created the world in our own image and likeness. And we've created God in our own image and likeness. We've created a version of reality that is in the image and likeness of a separate self, which we've made up. So therefore, whatever we're perceiving outside of ourselves isn't real. So why he says projection makes perception. Projection makes perception. So I'm projecting out from a false self. That projection is false. Then I'm perceiving it as real from the same false self. So I'm caught in a feedback loop, in a cycle where I project and I perceive and I believe that that's real. And now that version of reality becomes my reality. And I think that this is reality. But actually, it's just my made-up version of reality that isn't actually real, because I've projected and I've perceived something that's not there, not really there, that's false. And that's what's actually going on all the time. It just seems to be very real because we seem to have physical senses. There seems to be a world going on outside of us with all these people and places and events and happenings that all seem to be very real to us in our perception. But it's actually all projected from another level of our mind, the subconscious level, which we're not even aware of. And then we consciously perceive it and make it real. And that's kind of quite ingenious. If you were going to be a separate self, then this is what you would do to make that separate self real, isn't it? How would you make that separate self seem real to you? You would create a process exactly like this of projection and perception. You'd make all of this unconscious, so you don't know what you're doing, and then you'd believe in it so much and identify with it so much that you forget that actually this isn't who you are. And then you convince yourself that you're a separate self. You're starting to get the picture. a bit, Dawn. This is what's actually going on in our minds. So in truth, therefore, we cannot judge anyone or anything because what we are judging isn't really even there, right? What we're judging is an illusion. It's false. So any seeming results of our judgment must also be false, which is why Jesus, or Yeshua as I call him, because that was his real name, we're trying to just really get to what's authentic about these teachings. So that's why I've changed his name, because it's how the students have found it helpful. So he tells us very explicitly in this translated passage from section 10 of the Manual for Teachers. So someone else read this, perhaps. Kim or Elaine, if you can read that quote from the Manual for Teachers.
Okay. It is necessary for the teacher of perfect love to realize not that he should not judge, but that he cannot. In giving up judgment, he is merely giving up what he did not have. He gives up an illusion, or better, he has an illusion of giving up. He has actually merely become more honest, recognizing that judgment was always impossible for him. He no longer attempts it. This is no sacrifice. On the contrary, he puts himself in a position where judgment through him rather than by him can occur. And this judgment is neither good or bad. It is the only judgment there is. And it is only one. Perfect love's extension is innocent and sin does not exist.
Yeah, so that's translated, adapted from the original. Really what he's saying is you can't judge any of this. This is why, Jesus, Yeshua said, judge not, lest you be judged. Because you can't really judge if it's false. Whatever you're judging as there, as real in your perception is false by definition, because it's a perception. It's not reality. So the only true judgment is that everyone is completely innocent, because nothing they seem to say or do has really happened, and therefore has no effect on their or your true reality, which is eternally unchangeable and therefore invulnerable to whatever you may think has happened. So this is where the Course takes us, into complete non-judgment, which is complete forgiveness, right? Complete forgiveness says, I can't really judge anything because it's all illusory. None of it's really even there. I've made it up. And so if you can accept this fundamental premise of Yeshua's teachings, then everything you perceive in the seemingly external universe must logically also be false. So therefore, your ability to forgive or let go ultimately depends on faith. Will you accept this fundamental premise or deny it? You're either going to accept, okay, I get it, the world's an illusion. I may not fully understand it. I may forget it from time to time, but I keep coming back to that. Or you say, no, that's a load of hogwash. The world's real because my senses tell me it's real, and therefore everything that happens in it's real, and so I have to judge everything. That's the logical consequence of its reality. You judge it as real, and then it has the potential to hurt you. Can you see the logic of this, Dawn? And, the only way out of that is to simply stop judging. Just don't go there. Don't judge it as good or bad. Don't judge it as real in any way. Just the only judgment of it, the Holy Spirit's judgment of it, or perfect love's judgment of it, is that it doesn't really exist, and that actually everyone is innocent. Everyone's still the extension of perfect love. Everyone is still just this perfect loving awareness, and none of the projections that the ego's made up really exist. And that's the only way out of it, because if you make any of them real, then all of them are real. So if one projection of the ego is real, then that entire framework of reality, projection, making perception, perceiving it as real, that becomes reality if one perception is real. You see that? So it's very much a case of, well, it's either real or unreal, and you can't sort of fudge it and say, well, it's a little bit real or it's a little bit unreal. It's one or the other. And you just got to decide for yourself. So this course is the process of deciding that, of making up your mind about, what you believe is real and what's not real, and therefore who you are. It all goes together. Who you are, what you believe is real, go together. If you believe you're a separate self, then you've got to believe the world is real. If you believe that you're pure formless awareness of perfect love, as I call it, then you have to deny the world and say, no, the world isn't real, because the real self in me knows that that's not true. Stated another way, will you let go of your mental and emotional attachments to the people, things, events, and circumstances that seem to exist in this world, which means you must have accepted the premise that they are not true? Or will you allow the ego's reactive thoughts and emotions that cover over or negate the truth that only pure formless awareness of perfect love is real to dominate your mind and drown out the Holy Spirit or the remembrance of perfect love that reminds you of the truth? Okay? So a very simple choice. Are you going to make it real in your mind, and then you're caught up in the ego's reactive thoughts and emotions and judgments? Or are you going to say, no, that none of this is real? None of those thoughts and emotions that seem to be triggered by the illusion of a world are reality. So whenever you read and reflect on one of Yeshua's mind training lessons from the workbook, and you use it to help you let go of negative thoughts and emotions, such as anger, attack thoughts, and what the quote calls lack of love, in whatever form it may take, you accept the premise that none of these thoughts and emotions are real, and neither are the people, things, events, and circumstances that seem to justify them. You're saying, when you say one thing isn't real, you're saying all of it's not real, because they're in the same order of reality. In our consumer society, it's all too easy to lose ourselves in fantasies of trying to satisfy our desires, the body's apparent needs, as yesterday's text reading about the distortions of miracle impulses warns, be mesmerized by the world of form that really is just an optical delusion of consciousness, as Einstein called it, in this pretty profound quote, actually, which could have been said by a philosopher rather than a scientist. So, Elaine, if you can read that one from Einstein, kindly. Elaine?
Yes, I'm here. A human being is part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Albert Einstein.
Yeah, very profound quote. If you look at this, I think Kim and Elaine have probably done this, but Dawn, have a look at the photo there, at the picture. So what do you see if you look at it? This is a perceptual exercise. What do you see in that image?
It looks like cheesecake.
Oh, so it is actually a photo of cheesecake, but many people look on that. When I saw it, I saw a boat.
Oh, that's that shape of the thing. It looks like cheesecake with a slice out.
Yeah. So, but I saw a boat, and I saw that as water, right? An ocean.
Oh, wow.
Which that's the optical delusion. Other people see a shark. Some people go, oh, that's some kind of, great white. So it's very much about what you perceive it to be, irrespective of what the image is actually of, is what you perceive it to be. And therein lies the optical delusion. Like, we perceive things in a certain way, and we judge that as reality. But how do you know that it's reality? This is the you don't really know that it's reality. And how do you know your version of reality is more real than anyone else's version? Your judgment of what's real and true and meaningful is more so than anyone else's. You don't really. The delusion is that we think we do. Oh, my version of reality is superior to yours. Maybe we're all deluded. Maybe we're all just confused and we actually have no idea. We're in a dream world. And whatever's happening in the dream is just that, it's a dream. So none of it's real and none of it's true. And this is what this teaching is saying to us, which is quite radical, but it's also radically freeing from the delusion, the optical delusion, which causes us to forget who we really are. If you think that you're a separate self and what you're perceiving out there is real, then you've forgotten that you're eternally free, that you're happy, that you're the Christ, in A Course in Miracles terminology, and the transcendent reality it lives in and by that Yeshua calls heaven and God. We call pure formless awareness of perfect love an alternative language. You forget all that because now you identify as a separate self who's perceiving all this stuff out there as real. And the separate self then is going to be affected by it. It's going to find it fearful or exciting or irritating or upsetting in some way. And that all of that just stimulates the idea, perpetuates the idea that you're a separate self. And that's what we get caught up in. So to help you make the right choice, again today, why not do the guided letting go theta meditation? So this, Dawn, is something I include in every email. I send it at the beginning of the course, but you go down to the email here. It's there in various forms. So you can do 1 hour, you can do 40 minutes, you can do 30 minutes. I really recommend doing that in the morning, first thing, just to set you up for the day. It's got a profound letting go process in it. And that's then gets your day started on the right note. What I also do, as you can see, is I send out some recorded sessions. So in this one, we talk about meditation, what meditation does, how it changes the brain structure of regular meditators. The research has shown increases in brain density in areas associated with self-awareness, love, and compassion, reduction in the size of the amygdala, which is the primal part of the brain responsible for emotions like fear, and triggering the fight or flight response by activating the sympathetic nervous system. Someone also had a question about feeling really spaced out after deep meditation. So I demonstrated 3 quick breathing techniques you can do after meditation to re-energize you, bring your attention back into the present moment, and enable you to function in a flow state. Those, by the way, are coming in the next couple of days. I'll talk about those breathing techniques in the breathwork course, part of the course, which I've been sharing 1 technique a day for the last 7-8 days. I also mentioned that these 2 primary benefits of meditation, they help the meditator to zoom in and focus on what they're doing in the present moment, which is the basis of all skillful action, as the Buddhists call it, and the essence of being in a flow state. So you can zoom in, you can get in the moment, you can focus on a task at hand, and that's being very present. That's what the Buddhists call skillful action. And what it also allows you to do is to zoom out. So you can zoom out and enter a state that transcends the body to rise above the battleground, as Yeshua calls it in A Course in Miracles. Get a higher perspective on whatever you're experiencing in your life and let go of any negative thoughts and emotions. In other words, forgive. So you can do both with meditation. You get very specific in the moment. Okay, I'm zoomed in and I'm doing a task and I'm really in that and I'm immersed in that. That's what's called being in flow. Or you can zoom out and you can just have a sense of a higher perspective on whatever's going on in your life from above the battleground. Go, okay, I can look at all this and not really get moved by it and not get upset by whatever I'm looking at, because I'm coming from this high level view, 40,000 foot altitude view of, okay, I'm looking down on it all, and it looks very different from up here, as opposed to I'm immersed in it. And meditation helps you do both of those things, which is quite powerful. So when you need to, you can get really immersed in the flow and you can be fully in it and you can act in a flow state, and that's sometimes what's needed. And other times you need to zoom out and you need to just be able to zoom out and look objectively at things and look with a sense of detachment and not be moved by things. And it gives you that capacity as well. So if you want to dive into any of this in more detail, you just click on that, and it'll take you into the to the recording of that. There we go. There's a recording of that particular session, and there's a podcast as well, which you can click on and link to. So try and find the email that I send you, because there's quite a lot in them, and yeah.
But do you have a Facebook to get in? I think that was it.
You probably have to be a member of Facebook, to get into it. But
Right.
most of my stuff is actually on YouTube. So
Okay.
a few Facebook posts, but I moved to YouTube years ago. So most of the recordings are on YouTube, which are easily accessible. You don't have to be a member or anything.
Okay.
There's also the podcast, so you've got the audio as well there. And then there's a bit more information about 12 science-based benefits of meditation. So if you want to go in and find out more about those benefits, you can do a bit of reading. The resources are there, if you want them. You don't have to do all this stuff, but it's available for you if you want it. You may already know about the benefits of meditation, in which case, it's not needed. So that brings us quite nicely to today's workbook lesson. So this is the first of 360 lessons, actually 365, but the last 5 are repeated 5 times. So these are daily mind training lessons that help you to really understand what this course is saying. So I'm just going to click on here, go into the introduction quickly. So let's have a quick look at this, and then we'll do the lesson. So this is the introduction to the workbook, which will give you a good idea, Dawn, especially of what it's all about. So we're just going to read that, discuss anything that comes up. So really just instructions on how to approach this. Like any good teacher, Yeshua's saying, okay, so this is how you use my course, right? This is how you're going to get most benefit from these lessons that I've given you. So Dawn, if you want to start reading with paragraph 1, theoretical foundation.
Okay. Oh, W-N-O-1. Hold on.
Yeah, you don't have to read that, but just read the text. That's just the numbering.
All right.
The numbering is, you can ignore. That's for reference purposes. Oh.
A theoretical foundation such as the text provides the necessary as a framework to make the exercises in this workbook meaningful. Yet it is doing the exercise that will make the goal of the course possible. 3, an untrained mind can accomplish nothing. 4, it is the purpose of the workbook to train your mind to think along the lines the text sets forth.
So it's really just saying there, okay, this is how you're going to learn this. The text is a theoretical framework. It gives you the theory, it gives you the philosophy, and in the workbook, you're going to actually learn how to apply it to your life and to actually think in a certain way. So pretty important. The workbook is where the rubber meets the road. It's where you learn to actually apply these ideas, these concepts into your life so they can make a difference. If you don't apply them, then they're just theoretical and abstract. So next one, Kim, if you can read that. The exercises are very simple.
The exercises are very simple. They do not require a great deal of time, and it does not matter where you do them. They need no preparation. The training period is 1 year. The exercises are numbered from 1 to 365. Do not undertake to do more than 1 set of exercises a day.
Yeah, so it's a very simple practice. You do one lesson a day. There's a mind training exercise in the lesson. You practice it as he directs. Today he's just saying do the exercise twice. Just follow the instructions, really. And he's trying to make it as simple as possible. And if you do these exercises, then you're learning the course. And if you don't do them, then you're not. And it's a year's training program. So he's saying in 1 year you can really, if you do the exercises and you go through these lessons, you can really quite profoundly change your mindset. It starts changing your perception of who you are, of the world. And at the end of the year, you go, well, I've really shifted quite dramatically. So the workbook's divided into two main sections. Elaine, if you can read that.
The workbook is divided into two main sections. The first dealing with the undoing of the way you see now, and the second with the acquisition of true perception. With the exception of the review periods, each day's exercises are planned around one central idea, which is stated first. This is followed by a description of the specific procedures by which the idea for the day is to be applied.
Yeah, so it's just giving us the instructions. He's saying it's one a day. There's two main sections. So the first part of it up to lesson 220 is really about unlearning what you've learned. So if you find it a bit challenging, it's meant to be, because you've got to actually unlearn what you've learned. If you remember in the masterclass that one of the guys mentioned that word, he said you've got to unlearn. It's exactly what you're doing. First part of the workbook. And the second part, you start moving more into, okay, now I'm perceiving truly. Now I'm experiencing more of the peace of God that surpasses all understanding, going more into experience rather than words. And that sort of naturally happens when you've done a lot of the undoing work in the first part. You don't get to the second part without doing the first. So it's a sequential, logical, systematic process that he's taking us on. A very well-structured training course, actually, that's designed to train your mind systematically and progressively in a different way of thinking. Very, as you'll see as it unfolds, very well thought out, well-structured mind training program that I guess you would expect that from a master teacher like Yeshua. He's possibly the greatest teacher who's ever lived. He's created a good course for us to learn from. And then so there's one central idea for each exercise, with the exception of reviews. In some of the reviews, sometimes we review 2 or sometimes more of the exercises of the ideas. And then you get specific instructions by which the idea for the day is to be applied. So you just follow instructions, really, saying, right, here's what you do. You apply it as best you can. You follow the instructions. What I've done to make it easier is I've recorded little meditations, or breath breaks, as I call them, to guide you through. So rather than having to read and go, okay, this is the instruction, I've got to practice it, if you just listen to the breath break, you guided through it by my voice, and I guide you through the process as a little short meditation. Okay, so then he carries on. Dawn, if you can read that. The purpose of the workbook is to train your mind in a systematic way.
The purpose of the workbook is to train your mind in a systematic way to a different perception of everyone and everything in the world. The exercises are planned to help you generalize the lesson so that you will understand that each of them is equally applicable to everyone and everything you see.
Yeah.
Shall I continue?
So he just told us it's systematic, it's progressive, and it's about generalizing the lessons. So if you can take an idea and you can say, well, that doesn't just apply to me or to my situation or to one situation, it applies universally to everything that I perceive. Actually, these ideas apply universally because they're the truth. And you start to apply the ideas to everyone and everything. That's what he calls full transfer of training. And then you start really learning. Saying, okay, these principles actually apply all the time. And although they run contradictory to the world's thinking, these are actually the truth on which I choose to now base my life. So then he goes on, it says transfer of training in true perception does not proceed as does the transfer of the training of the world. True perception has been achieved in connection with any person, situation, or event. Total transfer to everyone and everything is certain. So if you perceive anyone correctly as they really are, then that has to apply to everyone, because you're seeing everyone as the same. You see who they really are, then you understand who you really are and who everyone else is. But if you misperceive anyone, on the other hand, one exception held apart from true perception makes its accomplishments anywhere impossible. So you say, well, one person is sinful, one person is evil, this person is really guilty. You can't see anyone as innocent because you've made one person guilty. Do you see what where I'm coming from, Dawn? You accept it or you don't. It's either universal truth that applies always without exception, or there's a contradiction to it, and the contradiction then becomes the truth. It's either or, it's not both and. You can't fudge this and make both of these contradictory ideas work together. And that's a very, very key understanding, that as you go through the course, you'll learn more and more. So you have to decide. You can't make love and hatred both real. One is real and one isn't. Well, which is which? That's what you've got to decide. Now, that would seem to be obvious. We go, well, only love is real in our higher moments, but then someone does something that you don't like, and then you feel hatred in your heart for them. And then you go, well, now I'm making hatred real, aren't I? And this is saying, well, when that happens, you can and should change your mind and restore your mind to loving awareness by letting go of that hatred and realizing that that's just false. That's an illusion. It's not true. Actually, only love is real. And that's full transfer of training in perception. When you can apply this understanding, what we call a non-dual understanding of life, to everyone and everything without making exceptions, then you've awoken, then you're enlightened. But until then, it's a process. It's a work in progress. It's a process, and we keep working at it. Okay, well, I'm not quite perceiving that person as wholly innocent. I need to let go of some stuff. I need to let go of some of my judgment so that I can clean my mind, and again, I can see them as they really are. Okay, number 6, the only general rule. Someone else read that. Kim, if you can read that.
Sorry, Jono.
Number 6.
The only general rules to be observed throughout then are, first, that the exercises be practical with great specificity, as will be indicated.
Yeah,
This will help you to generate.
Yeah, so practice them with very specific instructions. Okay, so he gives you instruction, practice it as he's telling you to.
Okay. This will help you to generalize the ideas involved to every situation in which you find yourself and to everyone and everything in it. Second, be sure that you do not decide for yourself that there are some people, situations, or things to which the ideas are inapplicable. This will interfere with the transfer of training. The very nature of the true perception is that it has no limits. It is the opposite of the way you see now.
Yeah, so what's he saying there in summary?
Follow the instructions specifically as has been laid out, and you can apply to, it can apply to any situation or all situations. And you can't make exceptions. you're not going to not apply it to anything.
Yeah.
So for him to feel the training.
And the training is really, you will make exceptions to start with. We all do. But the training is to start to learn not to make exceptions. So, okay, I'm making another exception. Well, I can't really do that and be consistent with this message and with this teaching. So I've got to stop making exceptions and understand that these principles apply universally to everyone and everything, even if that person has really done something that my ego doesn't like at all. And I'm really upset with them on the level of form. Even then, especially then, this is when I most need to let go. And I most need to see that actually they really still are the true self or the Christ. They are actually still the same as me. They are still love, even though they might have done this, what I judge, very unkind, very harsh, very upsetting, very cruel thing, depending on what it is, that you think they've done. So it's about applying it without exception. It's very key. And you won't get that straight away, but as you practice, as you apply these lessons day by day, you start getting more consistent. And you start applying them more and more, and you start seeing that they actually are all consistent. It's one thought system that you're studying, and these are just different aspects of that one thought system. Okay. So next one, Elaine, if you can read that, the overall aim of the exercises.
The overall aim of the exercise is to increase your ability to extend the ideas you will be practicing to include everything. This will require no effort on your part. The exercises themselves meet the conditioning necessary for this kind of transfer.
So what he's saying there really is it's easy. It's like paint by numbers. Just do the exercises. You don't have to design the course. You don't have to understand what the logic of it is. That's been designed for you by a master teacher. Just do the exercises and you will meet the conditions necessary for this kind of transfer of training. If you do the exercises, you'll be learning the course, in other words, and learning to generalize the lessons to everything and everyone over time. So quite simple. Just do it. The Nike saying, just do the exercises. Just do them every day. Ideally, as many times as he recommends. Very few people do that, but the more you do them, the more you learn them, the more you'll get out of the course. So, Dawn, number 8, if you can read that, some of the ideas.
Some of the ideas the workbook presents you will find hard to believe, and others may seem to be quite startling. This does not matter. You are merely asked to apply the ideas as you are directed to do. You are not asked to judge them at all. You are asked only to use them. It is their use that will give them meaning to you and will show you that they are true.
Yeah. Does it make sense to you?
Yeah.
So you won't understand them straight away. There might be resistance to them. You might go, really? Nothing I see means anything? I can't really get that. What is he saying? What does he mean? That's weird. That's crazy. No, it's strange. I don't get it. No, this course isn't for me. Your ego can do all kinds of things. And he's saying, look, just forget all that and just use them. Just do the exercise. Just do it. And if you go through the process and you do the exercise, then you'll learn from that. The learning will come from doing the exercises. So just suspend judgment, suspend your resistance, and just do it. And then you'll start to see the benefit as you go. Slowly, subtly, but surely you start changing your mind. And you start realizing, well, actually, this is pretty profound because my entire thought system is being changed here. It's being turned around and reversed into a very, very different understanding of myself, of the world, of life, And that's what, life-changing really means. That's what transformation really means, is complete turnaround in your understanding of yourself and of life and of your perception of life. So then to conclude, he says, remember only this: you need not believe the ideas, you need not accept them, and you need not even welcome them. Some of them you may actively resist. None of this will matter or decrease their efficacy. But do not allow yourself to make exceptions in applying the ideas the workbook contains. And whatever your reactions to the ideas may be, use them. Nothing more than that is required. So, doesn't matter what's happening. You may think this is ridiculous. You may resist them. You may go, this is crazy. I don't believe this idea. So it doesn't matter. Just do it anyway. Do the exercise, because something in you says, okay, I'm in a process here. I'm trusting this process. I'm trusting the teacher of this process, which is Jesus or Yeshua himself, and he knows what he's doing, right? He knows much more than I do. So I'm going to kind of surrender to this guidance because, he's trying to help me. Yeah. And if I just do that, and I'm willing to just do the exercise and not make exceptions, then it's going to go okay. And if I react to it, then I use my reactions as part of the lesson. I witness those reactions, like, oh, I'm feeling really resistant to this lesson. Okay, that's interesting. But I'll do it anyway. I'll just go ahead and I'll do the exercise anyway, because there's something to learn out of this. And he's just saying, just be willing to keep doing that, showing up day by day, doing the lessons, and that's all that's required. And if you do that, then you'll get a lot out of the workbook. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. Any questions on the workbook?
No.
How it's structured? So this is just a brief preparation. It's really just about diving in and doing them. You don't think about it and strategize about it and think you're going to do it one day. You just get in and you do it. That's what he's saying. So let's jump in and actually do that now. So this is lesson 1. I'll just guide you. We'll read it first. It's pretty short. The first lessons are pretty short and sweet. There's nothing much to them. We go into lesson 1. Not a lot to really translate. It's just fairly plain English. So let's look at lesson 1. So Dawn, if you can read the key idea. So that's in bold at the top here.
Oh, hold on.
Can you read that? Nothing I see in this room.
Oh, okay. Nothing I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place, means anything.
So you can apply that wherever you are. If you happen to be outside on a street, you'd say on the street. Mostly if you're practicing, you'll be in a room, so you say nothing I see in this room. Or if you're in another place, there's nothing in this place. That's not really important. The important thing is to just look around and say, okay, nothing I see here means anything. So then he just gives us some practical exercises. It says, look slowly around you, practice applying the idea very specifically to whatever you see. So I want you to do this as I go, right? So just look around, take a deep breath in, and exhale, and look around at whatever's around you. Look at the table and say to yourself, this table doesn't mean anything. This chair I'm sitting on, or maybe there's another chair in there, this doesn't mean anything. Look at your hand. Say, this hand doesn't mean anything. Look at your foot. This foot doesn't mean anything. If you have a pen lying around, look at a pen and say, this pen doesn't mean anything. Look at any object, whatever it is, and say, this doesn't mean anything. Name it. This computer doesn't mean anything. This phone doesn't mean anything. And so on. Then look further away from your immediate area. Apply the idea to a wider range. So look at the nearest door. So that door doesn't mean anything. That body doesn't mean anything. There's not a body in the room. Look at a body. So that body doesn't mean anything. Well, look at your own body. This body doesn't mean anything. Look at the lamp. the light and say this lamp or this light doesn't mean anything. That shadow doesn't mean anything. That wall doesn't mean anything, and so on. You get the idea. Apply this just randomly to whatever you see. And as you do that, notice that these statements aren't arranged in any order, and they make no allowance for differences in the kinds of things to which they're applied. Right? That's the purpose of the exercise. Statements should merely be applied to anything you see. Whatever you see, nothing I see means anything. This doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
So as you practice the idea and you use it totally indiscriminately, you start realizing, well, this applies to everything, right? It's not making exceptions here. If you find resistance, you look at something and you go, oh, I said that doesn't mean anything, but actually a part of my mind says, no, it does mean something. Then just notice that. Oh, okay, see, but obviously there's a meaning that I've given that, and nothing I see means anything contradicts that, but just observe that and then move on to something else. So don't attempt to apply it to everything you see. So it's not about, okay, I'm going to apply it to everything ritualistically, right? It's systematically work from one side of the room to the other, and I've got to name 100 things. No, it's just kind of random. It's indiscriminate. That's the whole point of the exercise. Whatever you happen to see, you apply it to randomly. Just be sure that you don't exclude anything specifically. So you might look at, say, a person in the room who happens to be, you know, a husband, relative, friend, and you might go, this body doesn't mean anything. And you go, hang on, but that body does mean something to me. You know, that's my husband, or that's my child, or that's my friend, or whatever. Just notice that and go, okay, but it's the same. I'm just gonna do it, even though I notice that resistance. So don't exclude anything. One thing is exactly like another as far as the application of the idea is concerned. And then he just gives us some instructions, and he starts us off very basically. He says, do this twice a day for a minute. Right? So really, really easy, quick. You're going to do a minute in the morning, a minute in the evening, and you're done. And so he starts us off on a very basic level, because he knows if he said, right, I want you to do an hour's meditation first up, you probably wouldn't do it. You go, okay, this is going to be too difficult. So he starts us very, very easily. Don't attempt him for more than a minute. If you find it comfortable to go longer than a minute, then that's fine. But don't have any sense of hurry. It's just about quite leisurely. Just say, oh, okay, it's just fine. I'm just looking around. Do it leisurely. And then when you've done it, you move on and you carry on with your day. And that's how we start with the first few lessons, just really getting us into it. He's warming us up. And the lessons do, you know, get he asks for more commitment as we go, as you'll see. But for now, this is fine. So yeah, any thoughts on that? Dawn, particularly, you haven't done the lesson before. Did it bring anything up? Did you find resistance coming in? Did you find it difficult? Did you find it weird? Did you find it strange?
No. I think the meditation, I tried that. It was weird, I think, because when I did it before, I used to have a lot of that monkey brain, like not. But then now I did it maybe once or twice, and it wasn't that. It was different. So I was like, oh, that's better.
Okay, good. Which meditation is this you're talking about?
So when you were saying to us to do the meditation last time, and then I just tried like on my own.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Which meditation was that? The hour-long one, or?
it wasn't the hour-long one, because I didn't go in for a whole hour. It was like half an hour or 20 minutes or something.
Okay. So one of the recordings that I sent you.
Yeah, well, just how you told us to start off to do it before so much. And it was different to how I'd done it in the past.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah, well, I've got to try and practice some more, but it was, yeah, it was different.
Good. And this particular exercise, so when you're doing it, you're looking around, you're going, this table doesn't mean anything. So part of your mind going, I don't really buy this, or are you able to just do it and kind of be in a neutral space and not really judge the ideas? Some people find this exercise incredibly difficult, and they just actually stop the course at this point. They go, no, I can't accept this. This is too radical.
You said do it. I did it. It felt all right, didn't it?
Yeah.
And
Good.
then it's almost like, okay, so the walls are not here where I'm now. And then, that window's not here anymore. And am I just sitting outside? Is it just black because I'm looking out the window? Might be a bit cold with the windows gone and the walls.
Well, what you're trying to do is start the deconstruction of this projection, perception, reality by saying none of it really means anything, because it's the meaning we give it that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's not about reality. It's not about what's happening. It's the meaning that we give it that's the only problem we ever have. So something happens or doesn't happen, that in itself isn't a problem, but it's the meaning that you've given it that becomes the problem. So even if someone dies, you go, okay, but now I'm going to give it a meaning that's very problematic. Oh, but this is terrible, and that person has died, and now I'm bereft because I've lost this loved one, and they're not in my life anymore, and what am I going to do without them, and how am I going to survive without them? I've given it a meaning, haven't I? That's not absolute meaning. That's just the meaning I've given it. And that becomes its reality for me. But actually, it has no, if I can strip away all the meaning, this is what he's trying to do with this idea, then I'm free. Okay, I no longer have to believe in the meaning that I give things. Nothing I see means anything. I can just clear all of that. It's like an eraser, right? All the meaning that we've attached to everything in the world, this erases all of that in one lesson. So it's a very simple lesson, but it's probably the most profound lesson in the whole course. It's like, okay, just erase all the meaning that you've given to everything. And he kind of dives us in at the deep end and says, okay, well, let's just get straight into it then. Let's talk about meaning and purpose straight away. And just, I'm gonna try and help you to understand that nothing that you see, that you perceive, so you could extend it to perception, nothing that I see or feel or touch or taste or hear or smell, none of it means anything. Wow. I mean, that's a pretty radical idea. That just completely transforms my world if I really understand that. Because here I have my whole life been going along giving meaning to everything, and now I'm being taught, well, actually none of it really means anything, and therefore all the meaning that I've given it is false.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now I'm starting to just view it a bit differently, right? I'm starting to shift my perspective on the world just with this one lesson. As I said, if you really master the lesson, then actually you could close the book. If you really understood this and fully, deeply, to its highest extent, you could go, okay, I get it. I understand the whole book. I'm done.
I suppose a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Actually, because I think there have been some issues, and then I've had some people say, but and now we're not really. And I was like, but there's no we. I'm not a we. And it's like, then I was like, that's not our issue because there is no we. So that was some discussions that I've had and that have come up, because we're not doing that as well. And there's problems, but I'm like, but it's not us. So you don't have to worry about it because it's not. Did you do it? Did you? No. There's no we. No. And that just makes it so much better because, and especially if you didn't do it. So where does the we come in? So this is a light form, but I see where you're going and how you're getting at it and it is better because it's less of a worry, isn't it? You don't
Mm.
have to, because no emotional tie.
Yeah, nothing I see means anything. It means nothing's going to disturb your peace.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's going to worry you. Nothing can upset you. Um,
It's not mine. I don't own it.
yeah. So you look at, talking about the I, the we, and the it's and the it's. Here's a model called the integral model developed by a guy called Ken Wilber, and we'll get into this in more detail in the course. Very briefly, this is saying, well, the I, the subjective I of your thoughts, your emotions, your state of mind, your perceptions, and your immediate sensations, that I is constructed. You've decided on that. And then that becomes the we. So when people share meaning, they go, oh, this is now we, because we share a meaning that we've given things, right? And that becomes what we call a kind of culture, shared values and meanings. And then we identify, people who have the same value and meanings. We say, oh, that's a we now. I'm the same as you because, we have these shared values and meanings. But if the values and meanings are illusory, if they don't really even exist, then where's the we? Where's that group that says we are this, and then by definition we are, somehow separate from others because, what we believe in and value isn't the same as what others believe and value. Well, if none of that means anything, then those separations dissolve.
Mm.
And that's kind of what you were describing.
Yeah.
And the external world then becomes a projection of the internal. So on the individual level, we have our own thoughts, emotions, our own thought system and perceptions, and then we project that onto the world. And we say, okay, now I'm going to perceive the world in this way based on that internal frame of reference. So I see the world as such. And then what I do is because I'm perceiving the world as such, that feeds back into these beliefs that project to them, and it says, no, those beliefs are true. And so it becomes a feedback loop. And that's why this is circular. We go round and around, and the more that we play that feedback loop, the more entrenched we become in this fixed reality that we've invented. We think it's real, but actually it's not. It's just our own invented version of reality. And that becomes very rigid, and that can become incredibly painful. Because the more rigid we are in believing that this is who I am, and the world must conform to my expectations, the more likely we are to be hurt when the world doesn't conform to our expectations. You see that? The more rigid I am, the more it's like, oh, this isn't conforming to my expectations. This is terrible. Now I judge it. And now I have an aversion reaction. And I'm going, why is this happening? And this is bad. And now I try and fix it by doing something on the level of form to change it. And all of that just creates a lot of suffering, a lot of drama and a lot of suffering for myself, and other people. And that collective drama playing out is the story of humanity. Our created systems and networks and technologies and governments and all the stuff we see externally is a product of internal processes. It's a projection of our minds, in other words. And then we've perceived it as real, we've made it real, and we've got so caught up in that dream world that we believe this is reality. And we've convinced ourselves, so much that this is real that we've forgotten the truth that actually none of it's real, that it's all made up. We made it all up, and outside of this whole construct of the mind is freedom. So beyond the model, beyond the outer limits of these rings, lies a transcendent self, lies a reality that's beyond all this, that can't actually be modeled. You can't really frame it. It doesn't have an internal and an individual and a collective and interior and exterior. It just is. And this is what we call God. It just is. And you can't really define it and frame it and say, oh, well, this is what it is and this is what it is. It just is. It's the background to all of this, right? So what's underneath all of the white writing and the lines is just the screen, right? Whatever that color is, slightly green, blue screen that's there, like it underlies all of it. And that doesn't change, right? So what underlies all of it doesn't change, is changeless. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. If you're looking at a movie, what are you actually doing? You watch a movie screen for 2 hours. You're watching a screen, aren't you? You're staring at a screen, and the only thing that doesn't change is the screen. What's changing moment by moment is the images projected onto the screen. But the screen isn't changing. And what you're really doing is looking at a screen for 2 hours. What gives it meaning in your mind is your interpretation of the images projected on the screen, right? But those images are coming and going and shifting and changing, and those images aren't permanent. So eventually the movie stops, the images go, the movie gets quiet. And I always quite like that, before the movie and after the movie. And you just sit there and it's kind of peaceful, isn't it? Because the movie's over and the screen is blank and everyone's gone, and you can just sit there and kind of peacefully chill out for a bit. Very, very peaceful, because actually you realize those are all just images. And the only reality that is unchanged is the screen. That's not changing at all. So that's where we're going with this, right? Nothing I see means anything. Nothing in the images, nothing projected onto the screen means anything. It's just images. They come and they go, they shift and they change. None of them are real. None of them mean anything. The only thing that means anything is actually the screen onto which they project it, which is the true reality that is unchangeable. And if we can go into that screen awareness and out of the awareness of the images, then we're starting to wake up. That's awakening. Okay, I'm just seeing true reality, and that's changeless. And I find safety and security and peace and happiness there because it doesn't change. It remains constant, irrespective of what images are projected onto it. So our job then is to let go of the meaning we give to the images and to just see the screen. You see that?
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. Even though the images keep going, and they can be very, very seemingly attractive or seemingly repulsive, and they can be flickering and changing all the time, and they can be loud. There's sound as well. It's a sound and light show of epic proportions. And yet our job is to say none of it really means anything. And this is what lesson number 1 teaches us. Nothing I see means anything. So it's a very, very profound lesson, a very deep lesson. And, when you need the whole course to really learn it. That's why he carries on with lesson 2 and lesson 3 and so on, because he understands, okay, in your first encounter with us, you're probably not really going to get it. You might get a glimpse of it, you might start to understand, but you're only going to really understand, if you practice this. And he gives us different lessons to practice with, because he knows if it's the same lesson, nothing I see means anything every day, you get bored. After 7 days, you go, this is just too boring, to tears, and no, I can't do this anymore. So he gives us different lessons. He gives different exercise, different perspective every day to kind of break it up, because he knows, our mind would get bored otherwise. But it's all the same lesson, really. That's what you learn ultimately in the workbook. It's actually the same lesson repeated 365 times. Just looks different. Actually, you're only ever trying to let go of your attachment to the meaning you've given to the images on the screen, and to go into the screen and say only that screen is real. And that's where I'll find my peace, my happiness, my safety, my security. Everything I really want is there in that screen awareness, rather than in image awareness. So that's where we're going. That's what we're trying to do with the exercises, and they systematically and progressively help you to do that, to not judge the images as real, and to just find the unchangeable screen and perceive only that, which means that you're at peace. There's a lot of peace in that kind of perception. Okay, so let's go back here to where were we in the lesson. So yeah, any further thoughts on that lesson? Any comments or questions? Kim, Elaine, you're welcome to come in if anything occurred to you, given you've done the lesson several times before. Anything new? Did it still resonate? Did you find it powerful?
Well, I find that each time I do it, there's always another insight. So it's interesting that even though I've done it many times,
Yeah.
it's still, there's always another little, yeah,
Something that unfolds.
yeah, very true.
And that's what the course calls deeper levels of significance. So I
Mm,
guess you go, as you journey into this and you do these exercises more and more, you uncover another level. Something else comes in, another insight.
yeah,
It's not
true.
like, oh, I've done it once, that's it. I'm done for the rest of my life. No, I do it as a practice. I do it every day and every year because something else is going to come in. And I do it, and every time there's learning, there's new understanding, something else comes in. It might just be really helpful for you at that time in your journey.
Mm,
Okay, nothing I see means anything today might be really, really helpful idea to help you let it go in a way that you haven't before, given what's happening in your life currently. So that's why I encourage you, just make it a daily practice, and this just becomes okay. It's like you do anything else. You brush your teeth every day, you shower every day, you eat every day, you do these things as just part of your daily life. Well, in the same way you practice the lessons. It just becomes part of your daily routine. And that's when spirituality becomes integrated into your life and just a normal part of your life. Nothing exceptional. This is just it's maintenance of my mind and of my mental and emotional equilibrium, which is essential. And we do all these things to maintain our body. What do we do to maintain our mind in a nice, calm, clear state? Well, many people do nothing, which is why they're not very peaceful or very happy. Because if you're undisciplined, forget happiness. An undisciplined mind is very unlikely to be happy for long. Because it's the monkey mind going, oh, now I need this, now I want that. And you're always seeking and grasping for something outside of yourself. The disciplined mind says, no, just let all that go. These are just images. None of it means anything. So just rest in screen awareness, i.e. rest in the being that you are right now. You're okay. Can you feel that, Dawn? Just right now, just as you are, if you're not thinking and you're just aware, there's actually everything's okay.
Mhm.
There's no problem there. There's nothing you need to do. There's no difficulty. There's no challenge. There's no problem. There's no desire. There's no fear. Just like I'm okay right now as I am.
Hmm.
And it's as simple and as difficult as that. You realize that you're okay right now and you maintain that awareness in every now moment, then you're enlightened. It's as simple as that. What the ego does is the separate self comes in and says, no, you're not okay. This situation, person, place, circumstance, or event means that you're not okay now. Yeah, that's what it does. Because it gets you to judge it and say, oh, no, this isn't okay now. Now there's an upset. Now there's something you need to be upset about. Now your mental and emotional equilibrium is moved. And now you're fearful, you're anxious, you're upset in some way. And that's real. And this is where the lessons come in very, very handy, because when that happens and you get an ego attack like that, which does happen, usually daily, sometimes hourly, you go, okay, but remember the lesson, nothing I see means anything. So just don't give it a meaning. Let that meaning go. And then very practically, you're letting go of the meaning that you've given it, because you're countering the meaning that you've given it with a very clear statement in your mind that it doesn't mean anything.
Mhm.
Now, one of those ideas is true and one is false. You see that?
Yeah.
Don't say nothing I see in this room means anything, and then in the next thought say, no, but that means something, and that means something. You can't do that because then you contradict the first idea.
Yeah.
So this is what's meant by non-dual truth. You accept it or you don't. It's an acceptance or denial of the truth. And if you accept it, then you'll find peace. And if you don't accept it, then you won't find peace. It's as simple as that. And you might deny that and doubt that and go, no, that's not true. I can be peaceful when I make the world real. Well, can you really? Does that last? You go, okay, the world's all real. It's okay when things are going well. Occasionally that happens. Things go well. Oh, great. All my expectations are being met. That's great. Fantastic. I'm really happy. How long does that last in your experience? Very, not very long, does it? It doesn't last. It's like, okay, well, that was over in a few minutes. And now suddenly something happens that doesn't meet my expectations. And I'm not happy. And now I suffer because I've given it a meaning and it shouldn't be happening this way, but it has happened and my mind is fighting with it and wrestling with it and saying, well, why has that happened? That shouldn't happen to me. I don't deserve that. Or how dare that person treat me like that? Or whatever the story it creates.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've made it meaningful and you've made it real and you've justified your mental and emotional reaction. And then it perpetuates, and now you're in a story. Oh, how dare that person do that? God, how dare they? I've been so kind to them and nice to them, and they treated me this way. I'm going to say something to them. This is not right. I'm really upset, and they might have been a friend of 10 years, and how dare they treat me this way? Yeah, no. And you're in a story, and you're in suffering. Or you could just go, well, it doesn't mean anything. Whatever they said, whatever they did, doesn't mean anything. And then I can just drop it and remain peaceful anyway. Because I realized the image projected onto the screen doesn't mean anything. It's just an image. It comes and it goes. And the images seem to talk and move about and take actions and laugh and cry and then go disappear. Image dying, which is the image disappears. It's gone from the dream. Other images pop into existence. Characters appear and disappear in the dream. And if I give it a meaning, I have to realize that I'm just going to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't give it a meaning, then that's the way out of suffering. And it's simple and yet as difficult as that. We can just realize this lesson is true, applied without exception. From this moment onwards, your suffering will be over. You could never suffer again if you just apply this lesson to everything that seems to happen. Can you see that, Dawn?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's that profound. One in the first lesson, he's giving us he's giving us it all. He's saying, okay, well, let's just dive in, and I'll give you one key idea that undoes everything, if you can apply it without making exceptions. But you probably will make exceptions, and your mind's not going to fully accept this and absorb it. So then he moves on tomorrow, and we do another lesson, which builds on the first, and okay, it gives you another perspective of it, another angle on it, so that you can hopefully understand it more deeply and try and generalize the lesson to everything. Transfer of training, as he calls it.
Yeah. It's nice to experiment with it, though.
Yeah. It's great. You can have fun with this. It's okay. Well,
Just
do
take
these are little mind exercises. Do it, see what happens, go,
Mm-hmm.
it's mind training, this is not, and you do it, and this is what he's saying, just do it, and then once you've done your minute or two, you let it go, and you say, okay, I'll carry on with my day. You might find that it changes your perception. Okay, so I'm not quite as attached as I was. Sort of a bit of a zoom out, and someone might say something, and then I might, oh, well, that doesn't really mean anything. And now you're starting to generalize the lesson, you see? Apply not just to the table, chair, or your hand or your foot, but to what the person said or done.
Yeah.
Which then becomes quite powerful, because now you've just reinterpreted what they've said or done, and you've removed its power to hurt you, which is the art of letting go.
Yeah. And it's almost,
And it's contained in this one.
I think there's another thing where they say, oh, consider the source of where that's coming from. Does it? No, it doesn't make, because actually, once you think like that, it's not worth having the concern. But yeah,
Yeah.
good to experiment.
And it's just reminding yourself, we do daily practice because remember, you've been thinking in a certain way for many, many years, many lifetimes, if you believe in lifetime. But let's just take this lifetime. So you are how old, Dawn? 50s, in your 50s, somewhere around there, am I right? So, you 50 odd years of experience, and you've been thinking in a certain way for 50 odd years. So that's going to take a little bit of undoing. Don't just generally change a whole thought system, a pattern of thinking and behavior overnight. It's going to take some practice and some training to undo that. And that's why we have daily lessons. And he's saying to you, okay, we'll practice this daily. As we get into it, he's saying, practice it hourly if you can. Remind yourself of this lesson frequently, because that's where the undoing of your existing thought system happens in these little mind training exercises. So they're very simple, but very, very profound. They change everything. If you really understood nothing I see means anything, your entire world's just been turned radically upside down. Yeah. Everything that you thought meant something has now gone out the window, and it doesn't mean anything. And you're left in a state of emptiness, which can be a bit scary. People go, oh, well, if I do this, then where's my foundation? What am I going to hold on to? That's the question. Well, nothing in form, because everything in form is unstable. Has anything in form that you've ever held on to ever worked to give you any kind of permanent sense of meaning and purpose? It hasn't, if you're honest with yourself, because everything's changing. The images are coming and going all the time. You say, well, this thing, now I've got a career, this is going to work. Or now I've met, the love of my life, my soulmate. This is going to work. Well, it doesn't last. Even if you're married for 60 or 70 years, eventually that's going to come to an end, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, none of it lasts. It might seem to last sometimes for decades, but it's not ultimately going to last. And then when you realize that, if you're really attached to it, and then it goes, then you suffer. Because now there's a big hole in your life and a void in your existence. And you try and fill that generally with other things. People go, well, I've lost the love of my life, so I'll try and replace that with another person. Or I'll try and replace it with a hobby. Or distracting myself with shopping, drugs, sex, alcohol, whatever it is. But that's not really going to work. Illusion. You're just trying to give what doesn't have a meaning. The only way out of delusion is to just end it. Say it doesn't mean anything. Which is, where he goes with the lesson. And I really appreciate his directness. Right from the get-go, he's like, okay, let's not beat around the bush here. Let's dive straight in. Nothing I see means anything. Wow. Okay. There's no gentle easing into this, and he hits us with this in lesson 100. He gives us to us lesson 1. Says, okay, well, I know you might not fully understand this, but let's just dive in. And you'll learn to swim if you do that, because you have to. Yeah, so fantastic lesson, great lesson, and bear this in mind. As we go, these lessons don't just go away. They're kind of the foundation of all the other lessons. Builds, it's sequential. So nothing I see in this means anything. I still, actually in my daily practice, I still go through the first 7 lessons every day. Because actually they contain the whole truth. Within the first 7 lessons, you understand the whole course.
Okay.
All right, so yeah, really good lesson. Any other comments or questions on that? Dawn, Kim?
Well,
I
nothing
think
from me,
Elaine's just dropped it.
Yeah, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
It's 2 hours ahead.
Yeah. So that's fine. We can leave the session there. Dawn, how are you doing? I mean, I'm happy to carry on a bit. We do a little meditation to close this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm good, and it was very, very good.
Yeah. Should we do a little Kim, you up for meditation for 10 minutes? I'll just guide you through.
Well, no, I need to go. I need to shower and get into bed. It's late. It's almost, it's 25 to 12. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
oh, well, thanks for joining. And we'll see you
Thank you.
next week sometime. Watch the schedule. There'll be a couple of evening sessions.
Thank you, Jono. Nice to meet you, Dawn. Looking
Love-
forward to more sessions.
I hope you have a
Okay.
good night. Enjoy
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night. Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So there's the lesson. So maybe, Dawn, I'm just thinking you haven't really looked at the text, have you? So maybe let's have a quick look at that. So text of A Course in Miracles. We'll look at so there's a lesson. We're now in chapter 2. So maybe how much time do you have? Just so I know. Are you happy to stay for another half an hour or so?
Let's do just maybe 20 minutes or something. Is that all right?
20 minutes. Yeah. So what I'm going to do then is just take you into the preface. So I don't know if you read this. So this was included in your first day's reading, but it's fine. We can just go through it briefly, so you get an idea of where the course comes from. And it's quite important to understand that and the basic message. So the preface was written in 1977 in response to many requests for a brief introduction to A Course in Miracles. At that point, the course had been published. So the first 2 parts, how it came and what it is, the author, who's essentially the scribe, Helen Schuckman, wrote herself. The final part, what it says, was written by the process of inner dictation described in the preface. So she explains here how this all works. So perhaps just read through it.
I think we did this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we look at this?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think on the first
in the
session.
first session, I think I briefly looked into it. So yeah, I told the story. Essentially, Helen and Bill were anything but spiritual, right? They were quite worldly. They had a lot of issues with each other. They were concerned with personal and professional acceptance and status. They had considerable investment in the values of the world, and their lives were hardly in accord with anything that the Course advocates. And then what happened was kind of a miracle. So Bill Thetford was the head of a department. Just unexpectedly said, they were on their way to another disciplinary hearing, and he just said, "Look, I'm really tired of all this anger and aggression and all these attitudes that are going on in the department." And he said there must be another way. And she agreed to help, and that's how the course was born. It was an invitation, really a meeting of minds in what the course calls the Holy Spirit, to say, okay, we're willing to find a better way of thinking and being. And because they joined in that purpose, they were then, by their own choice, selected for this task of bringing this teaching through. So they're given a little willingness that the Course emphasizes again and again, is sufficient to enable the Holy Spirit to use any situation for its purposes and provide it with its power. And then what happened after that was pretty extraordinary. 3 startling months preceded the actual writing. Perhaps you read this.
Where am I reading from?
From 3 startling months.
3 startling months preceded the annual writing, during which
Actual.
time Bill suggested that I write down the highly symbolic dreams and descriptions of the strange image. Sorry, I've got to get this bigger, my eyes are. Images that were coming to me. Although I had grown more accustomed to the unexpected by that time, I was still very surprised when I wrote, "This is a course in miracles." That was my introduction to the voice. It made no sound, but seemed to be giving me a kind of rapid inner dictation, which I took down in a shorthand notebook. The writing was never automatic. It could be interpreted at any time, later picked up again. It made me very uncomfortable, but it never seriously occurred to me to stop. It seemed to be a special assignment I had somehow, somewhere agreed to complete. It represented a truly collaborative venture between Bill and myself, and much of its significance, I am sure, lies in that I would take down what the voice said and read it to him the next day. He typed it from my dictation. I expected he had his special assignment too. Without his encouragement and support, I would never have been able to fulfill mine. The whole process took about 7 years. Wow. The text came first, then the book for students, and finally the manual for teachers. Only a few minor changes had been made. Chapter titles and subheadings have been inserted in the text, and some of the more personal references that occurred at the beginning have been omitted. Otherwise, the material is substantially unchanged.
Yeah, so that gives you, the history of how it came. She was a scribe, essentially. She didn't write it. It came from Jesus, and she just took it down. Essentially, it was like a dictation, and she wrote it down. It was typed up, and then they edited it and they published it, which was quite a miraculous process as well, because they got given the money. Literally, they were told to sit down. There were 4 of them to sit down, and they were told that the people who would publish the course would dedicate their lives to it. And then they realized that no ordinary publisher would do that it had to be them who would publish it. So they decided, okay, we've got to publish it ourselves. And then literally the next morning, someone called and said, "Oh, I've just sold some land. I think this course is amazing." It was then just in a sort of photocopied form, and I'd like to donate the proceeds of the land to you so that you can publish the book. And it was exactly enough to publish the first however many, the first print run of the text, the workbook, and the manual for teachers, which are the 3 components. So all in all, it was a pretty miraculous process the way it came about.
Yeah.
And they don't name, what I like about it as well, no one's claimed authorship.
Oh.
Because they realized, well, I didn't write it. Helen didn't say Helen Schuckman, because that would be her ego speaking. She was the scribe, she wasn't the author. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And it's become the basis for another cult. That's where some have obviously gone wrong. There are some cults based on A Course in Miracles, but it's really a self-study course. It's a program that's designed to help you to change your mind systematically and progressively about who you think you are and about everything you perceive in the world. So what it consists of is a 669-page text. That's the theory. a 448-page workbook for students. You've just done the first lesson of that in the introduction, which is really the practical exercises in applying the theory and the text. And then a 92-page manual for teachers, which is like the FAQs, frequently asked questions. It's in a question and answer form. That's questions that aren't necessarily answered in the text or the workbook. So, structured like a course, right? There's a theory, there's the practical exercises, and then there's an FAQs.
Yeah.
And there's some supplements, which we do as well, which came later, but they've now been incorporated into the course and are published as part of the course, because they came by the same process of dictation. So we do the whole lot. In a year, we cover all of the lessons. We go through the entire text. We go through the manual for teachers. We go through the supplements, and that takes a year, pretty much. By the time we finish the workbook, that's 360 lessons, and the text, the manual for teachers, and all the other things. If you chunk them down section by section, which is what we do, it takes almost a year. So it's a 1-year program to really segment it and do it systematically, day by day, which in my mind is the only way to do it. You could go faster, but if you try and digest too much, then probably you're not going to get it as well. If I said read a chapter a day, you'd probably struggle with that. But if you chunk it down, you do a lesson a day and a section a day, and the section is maybe 1 to 4 pages, depending on how long it is. That's manageable, right? I'm not asking you to read a lot every day. Just do it. Curriculum the course proposes is carefully conceived and is explained step by step at both the theoretical and practical levels. It emphasizes application rather than theory and experience rather than theology. Specifically states that a universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible but necessary. Okay? So it's leading you to a direct experience that is universal. And that universal experience has, throughout the ages, been called enlightenment or awakening or many, many different things. But that's a universal experience across different cultures and religions. Although it's Christian in its language, the course deals with universal spiritual themes, right? So these themes are universal to every spiritual path and every religion. It emphasizes there's only one version of the universal curriculum. There are many others, this one differing from them only in form. They all lead to God, what I call pure formless awareness of perfect love in our alternative language, in brackets, in the end, right? So they all lead to the same place, because there is actually, in the end, only one God. It's just, when you start off, the understanding of that is very different. So a Buddhist understanding of God and a Christian fundamentalist understanding of God and an Islamic Sufi's understanding of God, and everyone's got a different understanding. But actually at the highest level, the understanding merges, and you find that all the great masters and mystics and enlightened sages of the world say the same thing. They have the same understanding. They get to the same place eventually, which then leads you to believe that, yes, there is a universal curriculum and there is a universal experience. And that's what this is leading me to. So the text is theoretical. It sets forth the concepts on which the course's thought system is based. Its ideas contain the foundation for the workbooks, right? Without the practical application the workbook provides, the text would remain largely a series of abstractions, which would hardly suffice or be sufficient to bring a reversal which the course aims, right? So great theory, but if you don't apply it, it's all pretty pointless. The workbook is where the rubber meets the road. It's where you apply it. It includes 365 lessons, one for each day of the year. As I said, 360 lessons, the last 5 are repeated. It's not necessary, however, to do the lessons at a tempo. One might want to remain with a particularly appealing lesson for more than one day. Okay, given this is a structured program, if I did that, the structure would go all over the place. So we just do 1 lesson a day. And what I'd suggest, is you just move on. You go, I didn't quite get that lesson. Just go, okay, I'll carry on. I'll do the next lesson. Because you know what? That lesson will come around again next year. And you can do it again next year. Next time you read it, you'll go, oh, I didn't quite get that. Now I'm getting more. As Elaine said, you get these deeper levels of insights and significance start unfolding as you journey with it. So instructions urge only that not more than 1 lesson a day should be attempted. So just do each lesson 1 a day. And the practical nature of the workbook is underscored by the introduction to its lessons, which emphasizes experience through application rather than a prior commitment to a spiritual goal. So just learn as you go, learn through the experience of doing the exercises. Some of the ideas, as he's already said, may find hard to believe. Others may seem to be quite startling. This does not matter. You're merely asked to apply the ideas as you're directed to do. You're not asked to judge them at all, asked only to use them. It is the use that will give them meaning to you, will show you that they are true. That's just almost a direct lift from the introduction to the workbook we've just done. Remember this, you need not believe the ideas, you need not accept them, you need not even welcome them. Some of them you may actively resist. None of this will matter or decrease their efficacy. Do not allow yourself to make exceptions in applying the ideas the workbook contains. Whatever your reactions to ideas may be, use them. Nothing more than that is required. Okay? So that's from the introduction again. And finally, the manual for teachers is written in question and answer form, provides answers to some of the more likely questions a student might ask. So as you progress in this, you might start teaching this formally. You might get these questions. The idea is to learn that yourself what the answers are so that you can answer them for yourself and for others. And there's a clarification of a number of the terms the course uses, things like spirit and ego and so on are clarified, explaining them within the theoretical framework of the text. And the course came to all the workbook lessons intended to bring the students' learning to completion. In fact, he says this is the end of the beginning. The reader is left in the hands of his or her internal teacher, who will direct all subsequent learning as it sees fit. So we translate the he. Instead of using the masculine, it just becomes an it, right? So the Holy Spirit is an it rather than a he. And that's what we do in the translations because it makes it accessible. Because it's not really male or female. The he is where you could say she instead, but then again, you're excluding the masculine. So it doesn't exclude anyone or anything. That's just why we use it. Well, the course is comprehensive in scope. Truth, and I always translate truth as the capital T, cannot be limited to any finite form, as is clearly recognized in the statement at the end of the workbook. And maybe just read that. This course is a beginning, not an end. Can you read that paragraph?
Oh, okay, yeah. This course is the beginning, not an end. No more specific lessons are assigned, for there is no more need for them. Henceforth, hear but the voice of God. Oh, hear but the voice for God. He will direct your efforts, telling you exactly what to do, how to direct your mind, and when to come to him in silence, asking for his sure direction and his certain word workbook. Then it says page 87.
Yeah, so that's at the end of the workbook. That's the final lesson. That's where it leaves you, saying, okay, so it's not the end, it's just a beginning, and now you have a different way of being, a different way of living in the world with the voice for God, the Holy Spirit, as your guide. So read this and then an alternative. This will give you a taste for the translations. So what I've done there is I've translated a couple of key terms, like the voice for God becomes the voice for perfect love. And that just maybe changes the message a little bit. So read in the alternative as well.
Yeah, this course is for beginning, not an end. No more specific lessons are assigned, for there is no more need for them. From now on, hear only the voice for perfect love. It will direct your efforts, telling you exactly what to do, how to direct your mind, and when to come to it in silence, asking for its sure guidance and its certain message. Workbook 487.
Yeah. So when you read the second one, that's the alternative version of the first. Did that do anything? Did you find it different? Did you find it clarified your understanding in any way?
Mm, no, I mean, it's only where you've changed it to the voice for perfect love.
Yeah. And then instead of he, it's it, you see?
Yeah.
Voice will direct you. It will direct your efforts instead of he. So it changes it from that traditional
Yeah. It's
masculine, okay,
more,
God is
more
male, to, well, actually it's an it that is not, doesn't have a gender.
yeah.
Doesn't have a gender.
Yeah. So that
Makes
is
it
good
more inclusive.
particular people who would, resonate with that. I think more the second. But the truth is, I don't have an issue with either of those, or even the first one. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's good.
I
Because I mean,
recognize the voice of God, but some people don't recognize or want that, so they'd be more in tune with the
yeah, with the alternative.
but for
Which
me,
is which
just
is why, I felt the call to translate the whole thing.
yeah,
Tons of substitutions are made throughout the course. And so I give the original and then the alternative beneath it. So you can read both.
yeah.
Read whichever works for you. Some people might prefer the original. It's okay.
I think I prefer the original because the original sits in line with what I have been doing in terms of
Yeah.
God and
Hmm.
where I've been on that page. So, and the fact is, for me, and the other stuff is great, but for me, I don't. Sometimes it's weird because people feel that, oh, this is like a old-fashioned thing, and they're not like gonna say God or
Hmm.
like that. It has to be something else because it has to follow the new world. But me, I'm just like, do you know what? I can relate to
Hmm.
being a being stronger, bigger, more knowledgeable, and actually, it's our image. So even though, yeah, you look at it and you think, oh, male, God, when you read the Bible, it says within your image. So I'll see my image even if it's not, even if it's saying a he or she, I'll still see something where there's a link around
Well,
that's
the truth is, it's your own true nature. It's your own true awareness.
that's right. And it's where
Right
we
outside of you.
go. The whole thing is he's just come to teach us how we could live really well and be, and then, like you were saying earlier, we're going to go to the eternities. So once you've learned that truth, when someone dies and these things, yes, you're sad. Yes, you feel sympathy for the people, but you actually know where you're going. You know what the other side. So it's like a flower. You're just shedding and then you're going on to something else. You're not meant forever. So it's you
Yeah.
know of a natural flow of everything. Nothing's here forever,
Hmm.
forever. And
Yeah,
we
the only thing that's permanent is God, or this
yeah, or
love.
going
That's
we
that's
meet him.
that's unchangeable. That's eternal. It never changes.
Yeah.
Everything in time and space changes all the time. Nothing here is gonna last.
Yeah, and
That's
we
really what we come here to learn. Don't make what is impermanent and changeable into something real and valuable, because you're
yeah,
going to suffer if you do that.
that's right. We're just gaining knowledge, wisdom, learning to get ready to move back into that other place anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have an issue, but I can see it makes sense because some people do. They need to have something
Yeah.
else.
And what I encourage you to do is read the alternatives, because it just gives you another perspective on God. It's like, okay, so that word God, what does that actually mean?
Yeah,
Right? It's just a word that points you to something that's much deeper than a word.
yeah. I
So we,
think because
we call it perfect love or pure formless awareness of perfect love. And that's, oh, okay. So actually, if I phrase it that way, that gives me a different perspective on these words, on the sentence, and
yeah,
what's there. And that's the idea.
yeah, definitely can relate to lots of different words, but they kind of point into the same direction anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's dive into the introduction then, because it's very short. And we didn't do this last week, so let's do it now. So this is the introduction to the text, which is very short, very sweet, and this really just summarizes the entire course, very in a very succinct way. And again, if you understood this fully, you could probably close the book and say, okay, I get it. I'm there. But when we read it, we don't fully understand. So that's why we need the course. Otherwise, you wouldn't need a course. So if you read it, nothing much to translate here. So read in the alternative. This is a course in miracles or a course in corrections. You want to carry on? Read it, either one. Read it in the original or the alternative, whichever you prefer.
This is a course in miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, or that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. Okay. What is your natural inheritance? The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. Okay.
Oh, so a bit there. Let's unpack that. Okay, so he's saying the course in miracles, and we translate miracles as corrections. Okay, so a miracle isn't walking on water or turning water into wine or raising the dead. It's much simpler than that. It's a correction. You make a correction in your mind. You change your mind, essentially. That's how the course explains it. And it took me 10 years to understand that. So you're getting the benefit of 10 years of learning, right here up front. It's just correcting your mind, changing your mind. Then he's saying it's a required course. Okay, so everyone's going to have to learn this, in other words. It's required that everyone learns it, and only the time when you know. So only the time when you take it is voluntary. Okay, so however long you can make up your mind when you want to actually learn this. But nevertheless, you're going to have to learn it. Okay?
Yeah.
Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. Okay, so you have free will, but it means you can just choose when you want to learn, not that you can establish the curriculum. Because the truth is true, the curriculum is set. So it's not up to you to decide what the truth is. It means only that you can decide what you want to learn at a given time. Okay, so you can delay it, you can procrastinate, you can deny it, and many people do. Many people spend a whole lifetime saying, "Oh yeah, I don't want to go there, and all the spiritual stuff is nonsense, and I don't believe." And sometimes they die in that state, in which case they're going to have to come back and they have to learn the lesson another time. So he's saying, look, it's you have to learn this. You may as well get on with it, right? You may as well just actually accept that this is what I got to learn, and it's not really up to me to decide what I want to learn. So I may as well just say, okay, I surrender to that. I'm going to get on with it. I'm going to learn this. That's what he's trying to get us to do through this course, is accept, okay, I take this on, I'm going to learn this now, not sometime in the future, because there is no future, there's only now. If I don't learn it now, then I'm never going to learn it. Tomorrow never comes, as we say. Well, I do it tomorrow, well, tomorrow never comes, because it's always today. So just get busy with it right now. And then he goes on, the course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. Okay, so he's giving us the scope here. He's saying it's I can't teach you love. It's beyond what can be taught. It's an experience. It'll come when you're ready. But what it does aim at teaching is removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. So just going to move that around. So this is what I do. You know, if I think it can be changed, then I change it. And then the translation changes. However, it does aim at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. So if there's only a block to this awareness of love's presence, then logically all you've got to do is remove the block, and what will remain is love's presence.
Yeah.
So this is really saying, conceptually, it's already there. You don't have to become love because it's already there. It's your true nature. You just have to remove what's blocking it. That's quite different from any, say, personal growth teachings, which are saying, no, it's not there already. You're actually dysfunctional, you're lacking, and you've got to grow and become something else. You've got to become something better than you already are. Do you see the difference in those two ideas?
Yeah.
Subtle, but it's profound. I've got to become something better than I already am. Then I'm saying I'm not really good enough as I am, right? And the more I try and be better, the more my mind is saying, but you're not really good enough as you are now.
Yeah.
Which is why you got to be better, you slacker. And then, you know, you're on this treadmill of, oh, I've got to be better. I've got to do more. I've got to achieve more. And there's never an end to that if you carry on. And this is why many so-called high achievers burn out, because it's like, well, it never ends. It's never going to be good enough, is it? Because I'm always telling myself, no matter what I've achieved, that I'm not good enough and that I can be better. So I'm really reinforcing the message that I'm not good enough, which is suffering. If I think I'm not good enough and I'm trying to fix that sense of not being good enough in the world, I'm never going to do that. I'm on a hamster wheel of trying to fix it, going. The faster I go, the more exhausted I become, and the more I tell myself that I'm not good enough. You get it? Which is why that teaching ultimately doesn't lead anywhere. It leads you to a dead end, or maybe better yet, a dead beginning. Because when you get to the end of that road, then you start going, hang on, you know, there's a problem here with this whole thought system, and maybe there's another way. And then you start maybe being open to this idea that I already am that I already am that loving presence, and I've just blocked myself off from that awareness. So I've just got to let go of those blocks, and now the job's easier. I don't have to become something I'm not. I just have to let go of what is false, and then what will reveal itself is true. Right? So that's where the letting go idea comes in. If this is fundamentally correct, is what he's saying here in this introduction is true, then letting go of the blocks becomes the only logical thing to do, doesn't it? Removing the blocks to awareness of love's present. If theoretically what he's saying is true. So this is where the theory, the text, and then the workbook, the practice of letting go, dovetail. So, okay, you accept the theory and you practice letting go. The more you practice letting go, the more you see the theory is correct because it works. And you start experiencing more of this love's presence, and that heals your mind, and you find love and peace and joy, and you're going, okay, this is working. Let me carry on doing it. And then he qualifies this, and he says the opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. So there's an example of a dualistic statement. So the opposite of love is fear. That's duality, right? There's an opposite to this love with a capital L. You notice I capitalize it because it's divine love. Is what we call fear. That's a placeholder for love, right? Anything that's negating love, he calls fear. And for it as well, but in this context, in the introduction, as a summary, he calls it fear. So there's love and fear, and these seem to be opposites. That's duality. But in the second statement, second part of the sentence, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. Now you're into what he calls non-duality. You see, what is all-encompassing? If love is really all-encompassing and love is all there really is, then this can have no opposite, right? Because it wouldn't be all-encompassing if it had an opposite. So what he's taken you there from is, in one sentence, he's taken you from the domain of duality, first part of the sentence, and he's taken your mind into non-duality in the second part of the sentence. And that's all happening in one sentence. It's quite profound. And if you find that difficult, then that's normal. People go, hang on, this is messing with my head here. Because it's like a mind shift. You're familiar with when he said in the Bible, when Jesus said in the Bible, before Abraham was, I am. You're probably familiar with that scripture, yeah?
Yeah.
That's another example of shifting from duality, time, before Abraham was, okay, now we're in time,
Mhm.
I am, the timeless I am presence that I am, that's eternal, in one sentence.
Mm.
And needless to say, the Pharisees and the Sadducees didn't understand at all. They were like, what are you talking about? I don't get it. They try to understand because he just shifted them from linear time in the first part of the sentence to eternal time, no time, eternity in the second part. And that's the kind of mind shift that they weren't prepared for, and very few people are actually. It kind of starts literally, it's mind blowing. It starts blowing the ego's mind out of linear dualistic thinking into a non-dual, all-encompassing, infinite, eternal way of thinking and being, which is what he's trying to do. Shift our mind from the dualistic limited to the eternal unlimited.
Mm.
Does that all make sense then, Dawn?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is the introduction, and this is really a summary of the whole course. This is what it's saying. And then he sums it up very simply in this way, okay? In 3 simple sentences. So read those. Nothing real can be threatened.
Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Alternatively, that's the one you've put there. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of perfect love.
Yeah. So peace of God, peace of perfect love, whichever you prefer. I quite like perfect peace of perfect love. It goes nicely with the peace, but
Mm.
remember the words are just
One-
pointing you to something beyond words. So whichever symbols work best to give you an experience,
Yeah.
that's what's required.
And it does.
Nothing real can be, let's unpack that. Nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists. Yeah. So what is real? Nothing real
Oh,
can really be threatened.
it's like truth, isn't
Okay,
it?
because if it's real, it can't be threatened, it can't be damaged, it can't be harmed, because it's reality.
Yeah. I tend to think sometimes truth.
It's beyond any threat.
Yeah. Nothing
Yeah,
real.
truth can't be threatened, right?
Yeah.
No matter what anyone does to seem any threat to the truth, it doesn't matter. The truth is still true.
Yeah.
So they could crucify Jesus, they could kill his body, but it didn't really threaten the truth in any way. The
No.
truth remained unchanged,
But
and his knowledge of the truth remained unchanged, even though he's been crucified, even though his body's dying. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that's what he taught through his crucifixion.
Mm.
And nothing unreal exists. Okay, so the unreal doesn't really exist. Well, it takes a bit of time to get your head around that. What is the unreal that doesn't really exist? How can it be unreal and seem to exist? But then that's what's called an illusion, right? It's unreal, it seems to exist, but it doesn't really exist. It's false. That's what an illusion is. And it takes quite a long time to get your mind around this, but that's okay. You have time. And that's why we have a whole course, and it unfolds over a year. to really start learning this and understanding that is the work. If you fully understood these 3 lines, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists, herein lies the peace of God, or the peace of perfect love, then you would have the peace of God. You would have the peace of perfect love all the time.
Mm. Yeah.
It's because we don't understand it, we need a course. He's given us a course because he knows we don't understand it fully and properly. And so we need a course in training our mind so that we can understand it, which is why he's given us the course.
Yes.
So he doesn't expect you to understand it all to start with, which is kind of relieving. Okay, just you can beat yourself up and go, I don't really get this. I'm never going to get it. It's too difficult. You know, I'm still fast asleep because I'm still getting triggered by all this stuff. And he's going, yeah, it's fine. I understand that. Yes, you are going to get triggered. But when you get triggered, just come back to the truth and just keep reminding yourself that nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of perfect love. And that's what the lessons help you do. They help you remind yourself of this and find the real that can't be threatened, right? The place in you that can't be threatened, that's beyond fear, that's beyond all attack. And you find this peace of perfect love, you rest in that, and then you're okay, then you're happy. In perfect love and in that peace, it's fine, everything's okay. It's only when you depart from that then that things get scary and things get difficult. So when that happens, you've just got to remember that what you've done is you made a mistake. You made an error, and you once again identified yourself with a separate self that doesn't really exist, the unreal. You've made it seemingly exist. You've made its projections and its perceptions real. Now you're judging them as real. Now you feel threatened, you feel fearful, and you feel attacked, and you feel vulnerable. And that's not a very good place to be. You feel uncomfortable. And the peace of perfect love is gone again because you misidentified yourself as a separate self in a world that doesn't really exist. You made the unreal exist, in other words. So all you got to do is reverse that and say, no, it doesn't really exist. I've got to just remind myself that none of this really exists. So I've just made it up and none of it means anything. Lesson number 1, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't really exist. And then I'm free again. Then I can stay in the peace of perfect love if I stay in that idea. So this is what the course is really saying. We go back to the what it says part. Quite a lot, so maybe we won't go through it all. But so this is how A Course in Miracles begins. It makes a fundamental distinction between the real and the unreal, between knowledge and perception. Knowledge is truth. Under one law, the law of love or God, truth is unalterable, eternal, and unambiguous. Okay? Nothing real can be threatened. It's a non-dual statement of reality. It can be unrecognized, but it cannot be changed. It applies to everything that God created or perfect love extended, and only what it extends, God creates, or it extends is real. It is beyond learning because it's beyond time and process. It has no opposite, no beginning, and no end. It merely is. Okay, so we say God is, and we rest in that. This is what it's referring to. I call this pure formless awareness of perfect love, right? That's my full name for God. Sometimes perfect love, but the full name is pure formless awareness of perfect love. So it's just an awareness within you of this perfect love, perfect loving awareness. And that awareness is still there. It's still in you, even if you have it covered over sometimes by fear thoughts, by attack thoughts, by anger, by judgments, by jealousy, by rage. It doesn't matter. It's still there. Now your job just becomes to uncover it. Let go of what's covering it over and uncover what's actually always been there. Well, that's okay. That's kind of simple. If it's already there, then uncovering it shouldn't be that difficult. You've got to become something that you're not. Now, that's very difficult. And then there's a lot of doubt around that. Well, how do I become this new self that I want to become. I'm not there yet, but now I've got to become it, and I've got to reinvent myself and recreate myself. All of that is illusion. No, you don't, because you are already as you were created. You are already as God created you. That's, by the way, one of the chief lessons of the workbook. You are already that. You've just got to rediscover it. You've forgotten it. Okay, so then on the other hand, the world of perception, on the other hand, is the world of time. Change of beginnings and endings. It's based on interpretation, not on facts. It's the world of birth and death, found on the belief in scarcity, loss, separation, and death. It's learned rather than given, selective in its perceptual biases, unstable in its functioning, and inaccurate in its interpretations. Very, very unstable. Just watch the news and people's perception of daily events, and you go, it's very unstable. And people don't agree. Some people might love Donald Trump, and others might hate him. Who's correct?
Don't know.
The people who love him go, oh, you know, our perception's correct. People who hate him say ours is correct. Maybe they're both wrong, because maybe none of it's real. It's just a dream. So what you're arguing about then is a dream occurrence, a dream figure that actually has no reality and no meaning. Why are you arguing about it? It doesn't even exist. So he's contrasting this world of perception with the world of the eternal reality, and going, well, there's a clear distinction, a clear difference. So from knowledge and perception respectively, two distinct thought systems arise, which are opposite in every respect. In the realm of knowledge, no thoughts exist apart from God or pure formless awareness of perfect love, because pure formless awareness of perfect love of God and its son, its extension, share one awareness. Okay? There's only that one awareness. Knowledge is that awareness. The original talks about God and his creation share one will. So I've translated that as pure formless awareness of perfect love shares one awareness. So you and this awareness are the same. That's what it's saying. There's no difference between your awareness with a capital A and God's awareness, or pure formless awareness, or perfect love. It's the same awareness. There's only one awareness. You may think there's another awareness. In fact, that's your whole delusion. You think there's some other awareness with a small a, lowercase awareness. The world of perception is made up of that awareness, made by the belief in opposites and separate minds, in perpetual conflict with each other, and with this pure formless awareness of perfect love, the one awareness that unites us. What perception sees, hears, and senses appears to be real because it permits into awareness, lowercase awareness, only what is in accordance with the wishes of the perceiver. This leads to a world of illusions, a world which needs constant defense precisely because it is not real. So this is why we feel so fearful, why we feel so defensive, because we're defending what isn't even real. And if it isn't even real, you have to defend it and try and make it real so that you can perpetuate the illusion of a separate self. Do you see what's going on here?
Yeah.
And so you have two distinct thought systems. The one is true and is knowledge and is perfectly peaceful and happy all the time. And there's actually no time in that. And the other one is really a disaster, if you look at it honestly. It's constantly shifting and changing. You're constantly trying to find some kind of meaning and purpose. It seems to be very threatening. You seem to be vulnerable. And in the end, guess what? You're going to die. Whatever you do, you're going to, that separate self that you identify with and you cherish is going to die. So what does that all mean? And the Course is saying, well, it doesn't mean anything. Well, this is a world of illusions, which you're trying to defend desperately to make the illusions real, but it's not true. And then he continues, when you've been caught up in the world of perception, you're caught in a dream. You can't escape without help because everything your senses show merely witnesses to the reality of the dream. Pure formless awareness of perfect love gives the answer, the only way out, the true helper. That's the Holy Spirit, right? His function, his voice being the remembrance of perfect love. It's the function of its voice, its remembrance of perfect love, to mediate between the two worlds. So there's a part of your mind that remembers this loving awareness. That's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
That reminds you, okay, there is actually still this love. It's still there, even though there's all these images going on. It all seems very confused, and you've forgotten that. On one level, actually, it's still there, and you just got to remember that it's there. And that's all it is. It's a memory of that which actually is still true in your mind. And as you remember it more and more, that truth dawns more and more in your mind. And the Holy Spirit returns you to God, being this pure formless awareness of perfect love. And when you're in that awareness, then you're home. That's where you really belong. So it's a function of its voice, its remembrance of perfect love, to mediate between the worlds. And do this because while on the one hand it knows the truth, on the other, it also recognizes our illusions. It says, okay, so I know the truth, but I can also recognize that you believe otherwise, that you have all these illusions going on, but it doesn't believe in them. So it can help you to see those illusions truly and then say, well, don't believe them. Let them go because they're not true.
Mm.
And the remembrance of perfect love's goal is to help us escape from the dream world by teaching us how to reverse our thinking and unlearn our mistakes. Letting go is the remembrance of perfect love's great learning aid in bringing this thought reversal about. So that's what we're studying, art of letting go, or forgiveness as the course calls it. It's just letting go of what's false and then accepting what's true.
Mm-hmm.
So it has its own definition of what letting go really is, just as it defines the world in its own way. So what does letting go really mean? How do you do it? That's what the course is designed to teach you as we go. So this, by the way, is the quote. So we've already read this. This is where I got the quote from this preface. We perceive merely reflects our own internal frame of reference, dominant ideas, desires, and emotions in our minds. That projection makes perception. We look inside first, we decide the kind of world we want to see, then we project that world outside, and we make it the truth as we perceive it. We make it true by interpreting it as real. We're using perception to justify our own mistakes, being our anger, impulses to attack, our lack of love in whatever form it may take. We all perceive a world of evil, destruction, malice, envy, and despair. All this we must learn to let go of, not because we're being good and charitable, but because we're seeing what we're seeing isn't true. So it's not true. You can't believe it because it's just not true. We've distorted the world by our twisted defenses and are therefore perceiving what is not there. So we learn to recognize our perceptual errors. We also learn to look past them or forgive. That's what it means to forgive. I look past the errors and I remind myself that actually I still am love. Same time, we're letting go of our false self-concept, looking past our distorted self-concept to the self, capital self, the pure formless awareness of perfect love extends in us and as us. Self that God created in us and as us is how. Yeah. So very, very importantly, Dawn, I want you to realize what you're changing here is your self-concept. When you forgive or you let go, you change who you believe you are. And that's what's most important. You're changing that self-concept, which is the foundation of reality, of your perceived reality. If you believe that you're a separate self in a body doomed to suffer and die, then that's how you're going to interpret the entire world, isn't it? That self-concept has to change if you're going to change those unhappy thoughts and emotions. And the way you change your self-concept is by letting go of your misperceptions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So do you want to carry on? We nearly finished, or do you want to end it here?
Probably I have to go to bed now.
Yeah.
Is that
Okay.
all right?
Yeah, so we can leave it here. You got the gist. It goes on. You can read this in your own time. There's a few more paragraphs.
Right.
Which will take another 20 minutes, half an hour probably to get through. So understand but what I wanted to do is give you the gist of the of what the course is about, of what it's saying in theory, and then how you actually apply that.
Mm.
If you got that out of this session, then you've done well.
Yeah, definitely. And just
Yeah.
explained it very clearly. And it's making sure you do the practice to then just keep improving.
So the way you learn this theory is you do the practice of the lessons. Because when you practice the lessons, you're practicing letting go of forgiveness. And as you practice letting go of the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, what arises more and more in your mind is the truth of who you are. Yeah? So it's the practice of learning who you are. And you practice letting go to learn who you really are. So the two go hand in hand. In fact, it's the only way to learn who you are. You have to let go of who you're not. So you let go of the false perceptions, which are part of your false self-concept. When you let those go, what arises in your mind must be the truth. What's left is then the truth of who you are. And then the more you experience that, the more you go, oh, okay, so I'm experiencing something different here. This is the universal experience he talked about. Okay, actually, I am peaceful already. I am happy. I am contented. I am loving. I am all of these things. And I am actually that right now. I don't need to do anything or change anything. I am actually that I am. And then you might rest in that for a while, and it's lovely and it's beautiful. And then your life carries on and something else triggers you. And you go, oh, I lost it again. That lovely feeling is gone. Okay, but I remember that it's there. That's the remembrance of perfect love. And I remind myself of that. And I just got to let go then of my other thoughts and emotions that are denying that are blocking that. Fear, anger, sin, guilt, attack thoughts, irritation, judgment, rage, and so on. All of that is not true. I've just got to remind myself of that. And remember that only this loving awareness is true. And that's all we're doing. It's a really simple practice. Yeah, it's not rocket science. It's not overly complex. It's based on a simple truth, and it's just practicing that truth systematically and progressively through this art of letting go, and then you learn the truth. So can you see how the practice leads to you understanding the truth, and how the truth is essential for the practice, and the two work hand in hand. Without the fundamental truth, then letting go wouldn't work. But if you didn't let go, you wouldn't learn the truth. So you need to do both. And as you let go, you learn more of the truth, and that allows you to apply letting go more, let go more easily. And so it gets easier. It becomes a positive feedback loop instead of a negative spiral of destruction and pain and suffering. To go back here to the integral model, instead of this being destructive and negative, so I project from this false self-concept, and then what I perceive is incorrect and false, but I believe it's true, and then that feeds back into the false self-concept, and I get more and more rooted in that separate self, and it's more and more painful, and eventually that process leads to aging and suffering and death. Instead of that, I'm going, no, actually, this is now positive. I'm using this feedback loop positively. So I'm finding my true self. I'm letting go of what's false, and this love and this peace and this joy that's inside of me. I'm seeing that in the world, and now what I'm seeing is miracles that are confirming that that's in me, and so that strengthens the miracle, strengthens this sense of who I am. And the more that happens, the more I'm getting in touch with who I really am, and letting go of that false self-concept of a separate self that's doomed to suffer and die and be a victim of the world. And that now I'm in the positive feedback loop. That's the miraculous process that he's talking about. The miracles are helping me to awaken and to find my way out of this whole model into that which can't really be named. That's, that God, pure formless awareness of perfect love, that's beyond all words and all concepts. That's where it leads to that universal experience. But there's a process to this. So you can learn this. You can train it. You can teach it. You can learn it. you can practice it, and you can get better at it, which is really good to know. It's not just, oh, well, I'm waiting for epiphany. I'm hoping God will just enlighten me. You can actually work at it, and you can train it, and you can practice it like any other skill. And you can get a lot better at it as you practice. And that's the whole premise of the Art of Letting Go course and program. Is if you practice the art of letting go, you're going to get much better at it, and you're going to discover who you are systematically and progressively as you do that, as you master the art of letting go. Yeah, so it's really, really simple. Just keep practicing, just keep doing it. If it makes sense to you, just practice the lessons, do the exercises I give you. Go and for next week, go and do exercises 1, 2, 3. Give these a bash on your own, because there's quite a lot of learning in this. So exercise 1, reflect on and draw your life. Do that sometime in the next couple of days. Exercise 2, thinking out the box. Exercise 3, 16 boxes. Try and do exercises 1 to 3 before the next time, and see how you get on. And notice when you do them, what you're thinking. So you go through this thinking out the box. Okay, so what's happening? Am I getting angry? Am I getting frustrated? Am I berating myself because I can't get it quickly enough? You know, what's going on? Because that's really where the learning comes in. Okay, and the tip is just do it. Draw 4 straight lines through all 9 dots. It is possible, but you must think out the box. Okay? So there is no box. That's my tip. The box is in your mind.
Okay.
So give that a go.
Yeah.
And the 16 boxes, that's quite interesting. You can do that now, actually. So how many boxes do you see?
1, 2. Hold on. 1, 2. Oh, actual boxes. Hang on a minute. 4. It's 4 by 1, 2. Oh, it should be 16, shouldn't it? It's just
Yeah. So you're saying there's 16?
Yeah, if they're all the same.
No, but there's more. Because look again. Did I tell you how big the box needed to be?
No.
Did I tell you what shape the box needed to be? I just said box. So a
Mm.
box is a rectangle. So how many rectangles are there in there?
Oh, so some of those lines are very faint. So I can't always see them. So
Well, that's yeah, here's how you start to see things differently, right? That's a box, that's obvious, but so is that a box, right? And so is that a box.
Mm.
And so is that a box. So there already, you've got 4 boxes.
Yeah.
And that whole thing's a box. And then that's a box. That whole thing's a box. That's a box. Those 2 are boxes. Those 2 are, you see what I mean? It's endless. You just keep going. Once you see more, it's not really how many you see. I counted them once. I think there's 87. Stand to be corrected on that. But it's not really about the exact number. It's about going, oh, there's actually a whole lot more to this than meets the eye.
Yeah.
If I'm only seeing 16 boxes, do you agree? You're seeing a very limited reality.
Mm.
Because there's a lot more to be seen. And that's how life works. There's a lot more that you can perceive if you just go beyond a fixed assumption. Oh, okay, the box has to be this. I didn't say that. The box can be anything. So there's a lot more potential, a lot more possibility than you could ever have imagined. 87 instead of 16. No, this is abundance thinking, abundance mindset. So there, yeah, there's the one exercise. We just did it. Go play with this. Exercise 2 and exercise 1 is drawing, reflecting and drawing on your life. It's a great exercise, which we'll review later in the course. And you can do that on this piece of paper. I've left a bit of space, but if you want to go and create get a new blank sheet of A4 paper or even a bigger sheet of cardboard, you're welcome to. It's up to you. You can draw it as expansively or as small as you want. The main thing is to express what you're feeling.
Mm.
What are you feeling about your life situation right now? And then you go, in 5 years' time, where would I like my life to be? And you draw and you go, okay, so now there's a self-reflection process going on. And this is where we start. Okay, so the first 3 exercises, first 2, you've done the third one. Do the first 2 sometime in the week. And I'll see you again. Yeah, probably let's do Monday, because other people will be able to join. Did you enjoy having a couple of other people
Yeah.
on the call?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's plan for Monday next week. And then the following week we'll do the Sunday, and I'll see if we can get Kim and Elaine on to help you with the exercise. We'll name your game, which is probably the most powerful exercise of the whole course.
Mm.
But this is just the preparation for that. It's okay, so just start with these exercises, start with the mind training. You start just undoing some of that, ego self-concept.
Mm. Yeah.
Slowly, gradually, but surely. All right, thanks, Dawn. So yeah, any other questions? You just one other thing on a housekeeping note. You said that you weren't getting your emails.
Yeah, I didn't see my emails on